I took a MS660 with a 25-inch hard nose bar out and made some cuts. I used 7 different types of 404 chain, however we're going to focus on 3. I ran a Oregon 59AC, which is a 404 chipper style chain. A Oregon 27X, which is a 404 semi-chisel. It is actually classed as a micro chisel. And an Oregon 68LX. This is a full chisel. We're going to use these cards out of an old McCulloch instruction manual because it gives a very good example of the differences between these teeth. And I'm going to show you the cut so you can work out what they're actually like. So the first chain we're going to deal with is our 59AC, which is our chipper. This is a very old design. It is not commonly available in the US, to the best of my knowledge. So these have an extremely large corner radius, a very big arc out on the side here. As you can see in the description, round cutters cut each grain several times. What they're referring to is the fibers. So on a full chisel chain, it can clear to the outside edge of the kerf in one pass. With the big corner radius we see on an old style chipper chain, it takes multiple passes before it ever clears all these fibers out of the kerf. To get to the point where it's cleared the side with the fibers on the edge of the kerf, the top plate needs to be all the way down here. So that's their drawback. They are less efficient. However, their advantage is because of the sheer size of the working corner, that leading edge, they're able to hold an edge for much longer. They are much better in dirtier conditions. You will sharpen them much less frequently. They do vibrate more when you use them. However, as you're going to see, the cut speed isn't that bad in comparison. So that was the Oregon 59AC chipper. Feels pretty good, not a lot of vibration. Feels like it cuts all right. Next we move over to what is described here as a speed Mac. This is commonly referred to as a semi-chisel these days. The one we're using today is an Oregon 27X. It's referred to as a micro chisel because it has quite a small corner radius for a semi-chisel chain of this design. Here they describe them as semi-square, which is another term for a semi-chisel. As it says, the semi-square cutters cut each grain fewer times. That's because of this, that significant reduction in the corner radius. You can also tell the changes in design as things moved on. We've started moving the lower part of the side plate further in to reduce friction against the wall of the kerf. So it's just more efficient in every way. Just because it's more efficient doesn't translate to that big a difference in cut speed in the real world though. It's going to depend on what you're cutting. whereas 27X factory grind feels average. Not good, not bad. Our next one along, which I've used an Oregon 68LX, it would be described here as the Super Pro. As I said before, the efficiency of these is that they can sever the fibers to the wall of the kerf in one single pass. You can clear all of that in one cut. This requires multiple cutters to come along to clear that lower section, and it's even more over here. Theoretically, this is a much more efficient design of chain. The problem is we reduce all that working load from, instead of having this huge, big, long corner radius here to take the load of that hard job of severing the fibers, we've reduced it to a little point. As you can see, we've reduced our working corner just to this little tiny point that sticks out the front here. And that's what makes them fragile. So I'm going to show you guys the cuts and then we'll talk about what happened. Alright, so if we look at the average cut times, we've got 29.3 for the Chipper, the AC, 27.6 for the 27X, which it was very nice of it to line up with its name and just do it in 27. And we've got 26.3 for our full chisel. So as you can see, there's an incremental improvement. The biggest difference in cut speeds between them is between our full chisel and our Chipper, obviously, and it's 12%. Our difference in cutting speed between our full chisel and our semi chisel was only 5%, and then our Chipper is 6% further back behind that. So this is where you need to ask yourself some important questions. The total difference in cut speed between each end of this was 3 seconds. So we're looking at 29 and 26 here. 3 seconds. Now in those conditions, we're just cutting normal hardwood. The center of that is not dirt, it's just the heartwood of the tree starting to decay. Most chains will cut through that fine without too big of negatives. None of these chains come out that beaten up. But in those conditions, running an MS660 with a 25-inch bar, those cuts are lasting nearly close enough to 30 seconds a cut. Most saws, this will be debated, but most saws, when held wide open, will run for somewhere between 14 and 17 minutes. That's how much run time you get. Yes, your tank of fuel lasts longer than that, but you're not holding it wide open the whole time. If you doubt me, go milling, where you're holding it flat or wide open the entire time. You start calculating a few things. Failing that, start running long bars in big wood, and you'll start figuring some of this stuff out as well. Realistically, you're probably looking at making 30 cuts on a tank of fuel. If you're running the full chisel, you are going to touch up that chain every tank of fuel. If you want to keep that advantage in cut speed, you're going to have to touch it up every single tank of fuel. Our semi, you're probably going to do every second or third tank. Our Chipper, you're probably going to do every 6. So ask yourself this: if you're doing 30 cuts per tank of fuel and you're saving yourself 3 seconds per cut, That's 90 seconds, a minute and a half. How long does it take you to touch up a 77 drive link chain? It's pretty clear for this style of application, for just blocking that sort of tree into firewood, the choice is here or here. You are going to cut more wood in a day by using one of the slightly slower cutting chains and sharpening it less frequently. There's a good argument to be made for these. They're pretty much obsolete in every size but 404 or in harvester chains. Even they're kind of rare. It's not available in a lot of places. That's why this is sort of the dominant. The semi-chisel becomes one of the more dominant chains because it strikes the best balance. Now, people will see the full chisels and say that's what professionals use. That's how they're described. And it really depends on your professional, who you're talking about. If I was going out cutting clean, standing wood, I would square file full chisel. I know exactly what I'm going to cut today, and I know what I'm going to do with it. I would use that. If you do not know exactly what you're going to cut today, you're cutting fallen timber for firewood, that's where you'd be. Go find anyone who's docking or bucking logs, whichever term you want to use, that have been skidded or yarded. They would kill for this. They want this. They're cutting wood that has been dragged across the dirt to them, and then they need to cut it to length. That's what they want. There is a lot of people who are professional cutters who want that today. If they can't get that, which seems to be the case in a lot of the world, they run things like this. So yeah, not one of these chains is more professional than the others. I would argue all of them being in 404 generally puts them in the more professional class than your homeowner class because they're big anyway. So yeah, there's a bit of practical hands-on stuff that I've dealt with. I'm pretty new to the Chipper style chains. I've had the B3S for around maybe a year. I've only recently got the 59AC and very recently got the 46 RCX. That's the only still chipper that I'm able to get. All of these are only available in selected countries for some reason. I am able to get most of this stuff here in Australia. It looks like through most of Africa and South America, these things are available. Partial availability in some places in Europe. Doesn't seem to be available in America. Don't know why. But there you go. All right, we'll leave it at that for the day.